So I'm going to open up. We're now going to talk about lighting, which is the most important aspect of photography. You could have the world's best camera. You could have the world's most expensive lenses. But if you do not light your images properly, it won't matter. And for some reason, there we go. So, key elements of lighting. And this is the same as video lighting and good photography. The difference between the two is one is moving and one isn't. So lighting video is more difficult if the action is moving. And I'm not an expert on that by any means. But we have basic shapes. We have balls, cubes, and cylinders. These are the three basic shapes in the world that you have to light. You have to light a ball, which some of you have faces that are shaped rounder than others and you're a ball. Others have longer faces and you're a cylinder. And a cube is like a brick wall. So you have to be able to know that when you're photographing something that is cube-like or rectangle, you should show three sides. So it looks three-dimensional. So you have a highlight side, a shadow side, and a top. And every object that has these three elements also creates a cast shadow. So the light hits the cube and casts the shadow. And this is a tabletop setup. But all three planes must separate. And what I mean by that is the front face of this cube is a plane. The side, that's a plane. The top's a plane. We have the brightest in the front, which is your highlight. The next brightest, the next is the top, and the dark, which is not as bright as the highlight side, and the dark side is the shadow side. And then, of course, the cast shadow. You could find these elements when you walk out of this school when there's sun outside. Because I just took one of my students who said, I can't find any cubes, I can't find any balls, and everything is out in the front of the school. I know where all of the balls are, all the cubes, and the ball has to do with the statue that's out there. Next, the ball. It has the highlight side, which is the brightest, the shadow side is the darkest, and in between the highlight and shadow is that transition, and that's the core. And there is a hot spot. Each of you, if you look at somebody in this room, you'll see on their nose there's a spot that's brighter than every other spot of the face, and that's your hot spot. And then you have your cast shadow. The cylinder is the similar. You have a top, the highlight side, which is the brightest, the shadow, which is the darkest, the core is the transition from light to dark, and the top. And we could apply this with the 6 basic styles of portrait lighting. Now, it helps to have a subject who's patient. I don't. So there's broad light, split, short, rim, Rembrandt, and Paramount. And what you see right here is short lighting. The nose shadow doesn't connect to the cheek shadow, and that's called short lighting. The broad lit subject has just a hint of shadow on one side of the face, and everything else is nice and bright. And you could see the face has a highlights in it. It has the shadow, the incident highlights on the nose. You definitely don't want to do it in a portrait. Then we have split. Light on one side, dark on another. And you would normally want to put some fill light, which is light that fills in that shadow, so you see a little of the definition of the person's face. And you can use a white card. And I'm going to do a little lighting demonstration with real life person, but I'm just going to go through this quickly. Then here's the short again. The nose shadow doesn't connect to the cheek shadow. Rim lighting is just a backlight with a front fill, and light travels in a straight line, but it's reflective. So if you have a light hitting the back of your subject, and you put a white card, like some type of board in front of your camera where the camera doesn't see it, in the direction of that backlight, it will fill in on your subject. Rembrandt lighting is that little triangle, and you wouldn't normally, I couldn't get my husband to be still, you wouldn't see the other little highlight near his mouth and cheek, but it's just the triangle under the eye, and it was invented by Rembrandt, the painter. And Paramount lighting is beauty light. It's usually done on women. It's to create those high cheekbones. It was done in the 30s and 40s and so forth in Hollywood, so that you have a little butterfly under your nose, shadow, and then you get those high, beautiful cheekbones. And that's your basic lighting.